let's go straight to our top story today. Horrific scenes last night at Clapham in South London. A mother and her 2 children were rushed to hospital after a corrosive substance was thrown at them.
Police were called to the scene around 7:30 last night. 9 people in total have been injured.
Holly Hudson is there for TalkTV this morning. Holly, this sounds like an absolutely awful attack. What more can you tell us?
Well, the Metropolitan Police now say they're drawing on all resources in their search for the suspected attacker, including a police helicopter. A huge manhunt is now underway for the man who they say fled the scene here on Lessar Avenue last night at around 7:30 p.m. A scene that's been described, as you rightly put it, as horrific, awful and traumatising. We know from eyewitnesses, neighbours and locals who we've spoken to this morning that it was an extremely traumatic event. I've in fact just spoken to one woman who was rushing back to hospital who claimed that she had acid on her foot. She said that she had been involved. She had seen everything last night after she left her home to try and help. Heard cries for help from a mother and her 2 children. She said there was a man in a car, she'd heard a crash, a collision, and many other eyewitnesses support her story. They claim that a man in a car that was left abandoned last night drove into a woman here on Lessar Avenue, and a suspected corrosive substance was thrown. One eyewitness saying they chased the man down the street, another saying that they gave the lady, the mother, water to help, and she was screaming, "My eyes, my eyes." Now, what the Metropolitan Police have confirmed, what we know for certain, is that 9 people in total were injured, including the mother and her 2 children. Emergency crews, of course, rushing to the scene here. The fire brigade called it a chemical incident, and we know that 3 others of the many neighbours that came out to help adults were also injured. They've been taken to hospital for treatment, as have 3 of the police officers who responded to those calls. And we know that tests are ongoing to try and determine what this corrosive substance is. There are no updates as yet as to the extent of those that have been injured, of their injuries, or as to their condition. But this Clapham here in southwest London is known as a pretty affluent area. It's where a lot of young people who first moved to London come. It's where a lot of young families live. We're just on the edge of Clapham Common here, and a number of locals, officials, MPs have been at pains to stress this morning that this is still a safe ward. They've described it as a major incident. In a joint statement by local Clapham Common councillors Alison English-Jones and Ben Curtis, they said this is a major incident. The wider community is in total disbelief and shock at what has happened, and they called on eyewitnesses to come forward.
Holly, thank you very much for that. Let's now speak to former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Metropolitan Police, Kevin Hurley. Mr. Hurley, it's obviously very early on in the investigation. The suspect is still on the loose this morning. What will the police be doing to try and catch him?
Well, first of all, we're trying to identify him and what the motive of it is. You know, a rough guess, and discussing this with a former police colleague, it's almost certainly going to be a domestic-related incident, former partner, custody dispute, that kind of thing. What it will all come down to in the end is what the amount of resources that the senior police detective is allowed to allocate to this matter, because this will be solvable. You know, they've got lots of CCTV, they've got a car that's been found abandoned, they've got witness testimonies. But it's like all these matters, it comes down to what resources the police are able to allocate. So in a nutshell, find out the motive, be speaking to the unfortunate woman who suffered the worst impact of this, almost, as I say, certainly a domestic partner, but you can't rule out a random mentally disordered person, rather like the case up in Nottingham recently, dreadful case.
There will be lots of questions about that liquid. How common is it for a crime to be committed, an attack, with what tests are being done? Holly just told us the police are trying to work out exactly what that was. But a corrosive fluid, it feels like we had quite a spate of horrific attacks using some kind of form of acid. What do we know at this stage, and what kind of investigations will be underway to find out how easy it is to get a substance that can cause so much harm?
Well, the answer is to how easy it is to get a substance like that. Very easy. Buy it in the shop, distill it down a bit, and you'll get a really, if it's what you want, a terrible impact. But this is historically something that's gone on for hundreds of years. In fact, in France, 300 years ago, it was a regular means of attack. In acts of jealousy, people were called les vitrioleurs. It goes on. Offence against the Persons Act 1856 brought in the specific offence of throwing corrosive fluids. So it's something that happens from time to time. It's appalling because the damage is far more probably than most people anticipated will be, particularly to people's eyesight. And the thing that people forget, to their internal breathing tracts, their bronchia and their mouth, because they breathe it in. And of course, all these people who've been injured at the scene, which is neighbours, one of whom poured some water.
Sorry to butt in for you just a moment. Just wanted to point out that the pictures that we're seeing on the screen is new footage that has emerged of what may have been happening last night. So dramatic new footage emerging of what looks like that car with the driver driving erratically down the street, people trying to stop what was going on, and really, really serious and quite dramatic pictures there. Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin, but I just wanted to give our viewers an idea of what they were watching.
Yeah, I mean, one doesn't know. Was he trying to intercept the car with the lady in it, or was he a random mentally disordered person? But to continue with that point, you know, there are many corrosive fluids out there. Car battery acid, for example, it's been quite regularly used in the past, and certainly it's a preferred means of attack. Actually, acts of jealousy in Jamaica, where people will boil down car battery acid, but it's been used in France, in the UK, and so on. Ammonia, a whole host of dreadful, dangerous chemicals that you can practically buy off the shelf.
Tests are underway to try and work out exactly what that substance was. Kevin, thank you so much for giving us a bit more context, particularly about the procedures the police will be going through now to try and identify that man who's still on the run.